Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Digital Disruption podcast. This week I'm joined by Robert Thickett, the Digital Policy Manager at the Building Societies Association, or the BSA. My name is Pete Gatenby, AI Practice Partner at Novus Strategy. And this week we're going to be talking a little bit about AI and a little bit about what some of the BSA members have been up to. But first, Robert, how would you describe your role at the BSA? Let's give the audience a bit of an overview, a bit of an introduction to yourself.
Yep, sure. I am digital policy manager at the BSA, so I engage with our members around sort of their digital transformation programs, with some of the fintechs who are our associate members and consultants, and really, I guess as well, regulators and other bodies around other innovations going on or regulatory changes around digital and data. I've done that job for I think about 5 years, but I've been at the BSA for 12 years. Was mortgage and housing policy advisor before that, and before that, I spent 11 years as a financial services journalist, so mainly focused on sort of the mortgage industry, and I edited an industry trade magazine called Mortgage Strategy. So that's it. And just as a kind of rundown of the BSA as well, we represent all 42 building societies, so the Building Society Association, all 42 building societies. And we've also got 7 credit union members as well. So we've been growing with that. And as my background highlights, we've the building societies as a concept has been going for 250 years. So 2025 has been a big one for our sector.
Big year, big year. So your article grabbed me straight away. Naturally, my world is AI. I spend all day talking about AI. But what really sparked your interest in AI and looking at AI and how POCs can be used?
I mean, we've been looking at AI for a long while. We've had people come and speak to our members about it. I think it is, I think as I say in the article, it's on a huge hype curve, but front and center, our members been around sort of really trying to, understand the opportunities and the risks with that as well. So we've had over the years kind of presentations and speakers around sort of different frameworks they can look at. And I think, when you're looking at that kind of the risks and the opportunities, that kind of test and learn mentality really is a key part of it. And especially recently, where we've been talking to our members about where they're looking at it, because our sector, we did a project earlier this year. Many of our members are doing huge transformation programs, ripping out legacy technology stacks for their core banking, their front and some mortgages and savings.
Yeah.
And there is a delay on that in terms of, so I think where executive teams and boards in particular are really wanting to kind of get going with AI, there's that barrier to some extent if you haven't moved on in terms of your digital transformation journey to kind of realizing those major efficiencies. So lots of our members how can they gain efficiencies within kind of day-to-day processes without the kind of big ticket stuff at the moment. And I think many of
Mm.
them have been really experimenting with that, working with their staff to kind of get them on board as well. And I think one of the key bits around that, and in terms of proof of concepts, is boosting AI literacy amongst
Yeah.
staff, and really, that once you've got people on that kind of same level, actually really going to the staff and what are the areas that you think could be real efficiencies here, and giving that kind of front and center, that kind of sense of experimentation, because not all of them are going to work, and kind of working on the ones and kind of taking forward the ones that seem to have the kind of most beneficial aspects for staff.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned in your article and a little bit just in that response there about the speed of which we're moving from experimentation into almost live AI in production.
Mm.
What do you think is really driving that acceleration? Is it within the lenders? Is it external factors? What is it?
I think there is that real momentum with these. This is a novel technology for
Yeah.
a lot of organizations. It's having a big impact on society. You can see the kind of importance that government are looking at this in terms of how important AI could be for growth, in terms of helping us, output and in terms of productivity. So I think there is that real push forward, and even heard, with organizations, they're when they're analyzing, risk to organization, there's obviously the risk of AI, but there's also the risk of not doing AI because you're competing with firms. More and more organizations are starting to use AI not just for efficiency, but starting to use that within kind of underwriting if you're mortgage lending, or kind of lots of the use cases already we've seen with our members using it for things like forbearance, where you're trying to get customers with the information they need as rapidly as possible and deal with those, especially kind of with our members where they have volume customers. They're kind of real efficiencies from these types of things. So I think there's obviously a competitive marketplace, and there's that real driver to actually start looking at these things. But actually, you need to kind of get staff on board to actually start understanding what the opportunities are. There's not necessarily a threat to kind of jobs.
Yeah.
And then with that proof of concept, really go through the ideas and test them before you can then scale them, because not everything is going to work at the moment, and it's one way to do that.
Yeah, and you've touched on a couple of things there which are really interesting about the barriers for introducing AI, and moving from POC actually into full production state of AI usage. You mentioned two things I picked out from what you said: data, big one, and then the second one being AI literacy, as you eloquently coined it. What other barriers are you seeing? Are they the two main ones?
I mean, I think those are the main ones, but also the other one is it's a huge investment within organizations to do these things. And I think this is something that you is maybe not unique, but it is a key part of the mutual mindset, because the key part of building society, credit union, cooperative, they are owned by their members. So it's that mutual mindset. It's also the kind of the members' money. So with building societies, when the first building society was set up in a pub in Birmingham in 1775, and the landlord Richard Ketley, he was pushing around kind of tankards, and people stuffed their money in. He encouraged people to save their money, and then that was used to help people build or buy their own homes. And that kind of, so it is the members' money that you're using. And I think that's the other bit of when you're deploying capital as well, actually thinking that through in terms of, is this the best use of our members' money? In terms of deploying that capital, is this going to really make the biggest benefit to them?
Is it ultimately going to build that member experience, right?
Yeah. There is that, but also, is it? Are they going to get the kind of value you can say you can justify this to? And I think probably the answer is yes. Especially in the competitive market for kind of mortgage lending as well. And actually, once you're freed up from automation, actually you can really focus in more on actually those kind of product ideas, or the kind of great customer service that our members already do provide to their members and customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we see from our vantage point is that from an AI standpoint is there's lots of opportunity. And actually, when one of the barriers is that when you stand up the old way of testing whether a POC is successful and whether it should unlock the next trench of investment to move further through the process, right? AI actually is sometimes hitting that barrier. The reason it's hitting a barrier is because the traditional measures of return on investment, or has this POC been successful, especially when you get to more advanced AI, it can get quite expensive quite quick. And actually, the involved level of, also the further level of investment that might be needed to move from POC to full production is significant, and it might have knock-on effects within the data engineering. It might have knock-on effects within actually internal process or internal policies and things like that. And there's actually a ripple effect that falls out from that, which actually stops quite a lot of people from moving further from a PLC and further on into more advanced technologies. Are you guys seeing that as well with your members?
I think, yeah. Well, I think the barrier at the moment being around the sort of data,
Yeah,
and it is something that people are considering. But although I think it's probably packaged in with, legacy data and a huge drive towards digital transformation anyway. So things are kind of coming in part and parcel when firms and members are looking at kind of newer systems as well. Packaged in with it is, you've probably seen it already with,
yeah,
our members, is around that automation as well, to really start to digitize and digitalize, actually change an inefficient process and really improve it. So I think there are kind of these elements, and I have heard a few people mention as well, around AI, although this is changing, it's kind of a solution looking for a problem type thing. But I think those things are going to become, maybe as people understand kind of the capabilities of it, that gap
yeah,
will potentially close. But I suppose it's also, as more and more firms starting to utilize it
yeah,
for processes like underwriting, which I think I mentioned in the article, where there's lots of system providers in the market now starting to offer these types of services to really use AI to validate, to get documentation, to engage with customers, and that these tools are out there for the mortgage intermediaries to engage with their clients, or it can be for the
yeah,
lenders to engage with the brokers. Either way, there's there's kind of changes are afoot in terms of how these tools can be used to actually improve the process,
yeah.
whether kind of the end customer or the kind of intermediary customer that, with 90% of the market intermediated for mortgage distribution, that is a key bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just kind of build on that point a little bit more. I think the naysayers that originally looked at the technology and said, "Yeah, it's never going to catch on," they're definitely getting fewer and fewer. I think there are still pain points within organizations from people being worried about what it might mean for them.
Mm.
But I think a lot of that is getting addressed with good education. But one of the things that we're seeing is that AI is quickly becoming a capability and are quickly becoming commoditized within organizations. And so what does that mean in practice? It means that actually it becomes embedded in every part of how an organization operates, a bit like digital. So when digital first came, it was very, very similar, slightly slower, much slower, in fact, the pace of evolution. But now we don't think of digital as something we're like something that we need to be decide whether we do it or not. It's just embedded in everything that we do.
Mm.
Digital's part of, like, now we're having a meeting via a digital meeting and recording this podcast digitally, whereas in years gone by it was analog recording a thing, or you might be on a
Mm.
radio, right? And AI is going to get there as well. It's just going to be embedded into everything. But what that means is that companies need to improve their AI maturity in
Mm.
order to compete in that new world, and in order to service members in the best way in that new world. Because if they don't, and they don't have the underpinning data, they've not got got the right policies in place, they've not got the right training in place for their colleagues, then the ability to also obviously embrace that becomes much lower.
And I think it's also consumers themselves, their
Yeah,
expectations of you being able to use LLMs, so or kind of AI in their day to day. It's becoming much more commonplace for people, and I think you can't underestimate that in terms of that kind of wave of customer adoption.
yeah,
It's rapidly becoming something that people would expect to see, probably similarly to kind of, feels a long time ago, but kind of where when the internet first started to become a common.
yeah,
I remember going into an office and there was like one computer in an office that had the internet,
yeah, yeah,
and just to think of that now is bizarre, but that had a similar effect. And then before that, it would have been in terms of when word processing kind of computers came in,
yeah,
replacing typing halls and other things like that. This is one of those kind of evolutionary technologies
yeah,
that people are rapidly expecting for, and the kind of benefits for it. Just thinking of, even with chatbots for, say, in the context of building societies, even if you're in a branch, having a chatbot or something, if you're engaging with clients, having a chatbot that effectively helps you become an expert on all the kind of aspects of
Yeah.
of your organization, or even around the customer and their data as well. These something can really make that kind of job, that customer facing job, which is the key bits, which I don't think are going to be going anywhere anytime soon. In terms of those types of roles, they'll be
Yeah.
able to actually help people better service the kind of end customer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you sort of mentioned a couple of times actually around the workforce literacy and also around governance. What are you seeing as the biggest capability gaps around the the process across multiple systems or partners or people? Where are you seeing those gaps appearing at the moment?
Um, it's that's a difficult one. I think in terms of, I think it is actually the capability of what the organization can do. You can kind of bring in
Yeah,
staff, but actually at the moment, if your data is not in the right position for that, then there's a limit to what you can do. There's obviously going to be the human aspect to these things in terms of, technology isn't always the challenge. It's the kind of behavior to actually adopt new processes as well. But I think in this one, you we're going through such a seismic change from sort of monolithic traditional legacy technology to cloud-based digital services in the first place, and getting data in a way that can kind of be more easily accessed, and also
yeah,
connectivity in terms of those systems as well. So I think those are the kind of still the big challenges to kind of help people get up to speed. But I think once the kind of frameworks are in place, there are lots of that was the concern over how people would start to kind of use these things safely. I think there's kind of a better understanding of those bits, and even the development of data centers within the UK around sort of applying the regulations and rules that we have in terms of operational resilience. Really helping firms to kind of understand what the risks are, how they can kind of manage those, and then kind of drive on in terms of innovation.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, One of your member organisations, actually, I was at Leeds Digital Festival a few September it was, and I was in a talk and I heard Leeds Building Site actually. It was a really really interesting talk, and they were talking about how they'd almost managed the rollout of Copilot. So when Microsoft has been um, wrapping Copilot into everyone's Office 365 licenses and it appeared on everyone's teams, and they went to manage that in a proactive way, which I thought was a really really positive step, because rather than saying yes everyone can have access and just letting everyone go wild, or no one's going to have access, they said look, everyone is allowed access, but to get access you have to go through a set of training, go through the training. We'll show you how to use LLMs properly, efficiently, safely, and effectively. And if you pass the training, then you can have access to your Copilot license, and we encourage you to do it, and then bring the use cases back to us as an organization to establish what further kind of use cases that could be brought to the table and tested. And I thought that was a really really good way of bringing the team, bringing the colleagues along on the journey, educating them, getting the most out of the tools and the capability that's being made available, but also protecting the use of those tools
Yeah. And also by
and
giving them that understanding of how the technology works, what the kind of benefits are, but also
yeah,
the big risks. It kind of helps you then when you're looking at problems and tasks that you're doing, able to kind of work with senior teams around, well,
yeah,
where can we really deploy this in the best way. But there's an interesting point around sort of using these tools safely, and you've got this sort of proliferation of AI in everything, and there's no kind of similar safety courses and notes and practice notes for kind of anyone that will have it on their mobile phone. And you might be sifting, putting personal details in there to kind of,
yeah,
maybe if you're doing a CV or other bits like that, in terms of understanding how these training models work. There are ways to do it more safely, that are freely available. But I think that's a kind of challenge as well for firms using these. Well, there's an expectation with consumers, but there is no there's no mandated AI literacy for consumers. So actually, does that need to be part of actually how the kind of assistance that firms, all firms, are offering to customers in terms of helping them to
I, I,
protect themselves?
yeah, I think so. I think so. There was obviously we're running on the run into Christmas now. There was I can't, was it Santander? Might be Santander was running AI ads around like a marketing campaign around how like the risk of AI and fraud,
Yeah,
and that side of things. To obviously touching on your point around the literacy of customers,
yeah,
because it was like when emails first came around, right, and you got the spam emails, and it was always your gran who ended up sending money to illegitimate sources, right? And it's the same thing, but I think we just need to upskill as an industry. Like there's a we have a responsibility to to our members and to our customers to help them understand this new world that we live in reference to lending and the home buying journey. I think there is a responsibility there for us as a group.
and but also we've been here before in terms of social media and the
Yeah,
kind of the risks that's thrown up.
yeah,
You think
yeah,
of like fraud, um, and even just disclosing your personal details on posts and other bits like that,
yeah,
and the knock-on impact that can have, whether being broken into or defrauded, or just the breaching the privacy of, say, your children or anything like that. These are all things that there's a lot of understanding now about how these things can be great, but also have a massive negative attached to them as well.
no, absolutely, absolutely. So looking forward then from an AI standpoint, and I'm really excited around the possibilities of this technology. But agentic AI is obviously here. It's live in some industries. We're slightly behind and slightly slower in our industry, but the linking together AI tooling for autonomous working through a process and multi-step processes from an AI standpoint is very, very interesting. And I can see a lot of benefit, a lot of use cases that can really move us forward to increase efficiency, increase
Mm.
speed, increase accuracy and predictability when it comes to the completion that would happen in a lending process. But when you look at agentic AI and the capabilities that sit around that, and then you look at it through a POC lens, how do you think lenders, building societies should be testing agentic AI?
I think again, it's got to be around the experimentation, really actually trying to kind of prove out kind of concepts as well, and I think with agile working practices as well, that's how firms are coming towards this in terms of um, although saying that the kind of agentic propositions that are already come to market are that process has already gone on in terms of their packaged together, but actually how you can test that is an opportunity to really see where you can deploy this for the best possible outcome for kind of the firms and customers as well. So I
Yeah,
think the underwriting is one aspect as well as how far that will go. A number of industries, they have agentic AI operating, and they manage the entire process already. That's not something that I guess it's how comfortable
yeah.
firms are going
There's a
to
risk
be around
appetite, right?
that. If you've already got a process as an underwriter and you're working with an underwriter and you're trusting that underwriter, potentially, that next step, would you be able to kind of trust that more? I think it's still requiring that human in the loop seems to be a big part of
Yeah,
how firms are looking at this, rather than actually thinking. I know there are a few people saying, "Oh, it could go the full way in terms of agentic AI," but I think there's that like with any new technology, there's trust, and that's something that with the proof of concept, actually testing out solutions and really allowing firms to become more comfortable about these. Actually the benefits, they can see them. If they don't work or they feel less sure about that, I think that's a good aspect of you can see the tools that are being developed. They're working within firms' limitations. Definitely not talking about at the moment about removing completely that human in the loop, where you're making decisions, but the kind of potential benefits of agentic AI, especially around bureaucracy, you can see with humans that those are the aspects that we're not so good at.
Yeah.
Well, we are, we're great in terms of emotional empathy. We're great in terms of kind of engaging with other people, and I think that's it. It would be the trade-offs of kind of where are the strengths of humans dealing with other humans, weird, or but actually the benefits of having agentic AI to kind of manage, as you say, kind of processes and really streamline kind of how they connect in with different systems.
No, absolutely. And obviously we're going through a phase of transformation at an industry level at the moment, which is seeing the de-siloing. I don't know if de-siloing is a word, but I'm going to go with it. And the de-siloing of data pockets across the process, right?
Yeah.
And as we get that kind of horizontal digital integration throughout the process, the HDI strategies that lenders start to adopt and how they integrate up and down the process actually unlocks agentic AI as a capability, because suddenly you've got this rail from a data standpoint that flows through the process that you can trust, that you can draw down on, and also you can push back into autonomously. And suddenly, actually, the power that sits within that becomes hugely powerful, and the returns and the benefits for the members, the borrowers, the colleagues, and the organisations in the process just go up and up and up. But it's unlocking that capability, right, which is the key at the moment.
I think the bit that I find most exciting is around, with all the kind of projects I know that you're involved in, lots of them, like Centre for Financial Innovation and Technology and the Open Property Data Association. Looking actually at the overall property buying process, and having like many people who bought a property being completely stressed out by the process and all the inefficiencies with it. When you start to kind of combine that, and you could really see a process massively sped up. I was at a conference the other day, and they were talking about in some countries where they have not necessarily digitized processes, but simplified processes, people can move within 3 weeks. They sell their homes first, and then they'll look to buy, and they'll surf. That was in Denmark apparently, which seems,
I think Norway did similar.
So incredible. It's almost perverse to think of it and how bad things are in the UK. Instead we've got a proliferation of Dickensian terms to describe how badly failing our property buying process. Gazumping, gazundering, sounds like definitely a character from a Dickens novel. But it's just it could, these terms which we all understand could become a thing of the past. So I think that's kind of, not just in terms of mortgage lending, but actually when with processes like the house buying process, where you have lots of different sectors, the potential opportunity there to kind of really get efficiencies and speed things up and reduce stress for us all, which is always good.
Nice, right? So looking ahead then, where do you see AI is going to really bring the biggest benefit to this entire process? You've talked about the draconian process that we exist in now, but where do you think you can see some of the big benefits?
I think anything where you're in the actual process of actually getting the information that you require, and making sure that it's kind of dealt with in a quick time. I think these are going to be big things in terms of whether you're opening a savings account or a mortgage account. It could really start to improve that process. It's already pretty quick in terms of onboarding, but also I already think that we're getting to the process with chatbots where, especially where they're using LLMs, the kind of feedback you get is better than a human from it. I was a bit late with the credit card payment, and I was just wanting to kind of find out from the chatbot basically, is it going to affect my credit score? I was like literally a day,
Yeah.
And they, because it was a human rather than LLM, they were just relaying back to me the law rather than which it wasn't telling me is this going to affect my credit score. Whereas I think kind of you look at LLMs, they're really good at trying to kind of take your question, take that data. They're not perfect, and hallucinations and other bits like that. But these are the things that actually can really, improve that process. Not, and in addition to things like kind of getting a mortgage and making sure you've got all that documentation. Once we start to have things in a format, say digital identity or kind of qualified electronic signatures, we're no longer having to put things in the post. I mean, I think that could be a huge game changer in terms of big processes where you're no longer requiring on yellow pages worth of documentation flowing back and forth in the postal service, which isn't fun for anyone.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? That'd be nice. Robert, thanks for joining us on this micro edition of the Digital Disruption podcast. It's been really insightful. I've enjoyed this one. And for anyone watching or listening, if you'd like to get these insights before they hit the podcast in our monthly printed newsletter direct to your desk, click the link in the description to fill in your details and subscribe, and you'll receive that every single month. Thanks again, Robert. It was great to chat as always, and we'll speak very soon.